Well, good morning. Looks like we're live. Thanks for joining me for Cowboy Church and the continuation of our study of the Alpha series. Got a little bit of a funny green glow around me this morning on my picture. At least that's what I see. I apologize for that. But in that building behind me last night was the Super Bowl of My Sport Rain Cow Horse. And it was the last night of a 2-week World Championship show they call the Celebration of Champions in Fort Worth, Texas, at the Will Rogers Coliseum. And the final event, the crowning event, what I call the Super Bowl, is the World's Greatest Horseman competition. And that is a 4-event in one day competition. They do the cutting, where you separate a cow from the herd and hold it from the herd while it's trying to duck and dive and get back to the herd. And there's the reining, which is a very finessed set of maneuvers that you have to do at high speed, spins and turns and slides. Then the roping, steer stopping, and then finally the working cow horse down the fence, which is very exciting. And you get a score for each event, and they add all the scores together, and the highest composite total wins it. And last night, history was made. It was the first time a woman has won the world's greatest. So congratulations to Erin Taramino. She beat all the guys and girls. There was, out of the 15 finalists, there were 3 gals in it. And yeah, in my sport, the men and the women compete on equal footing. So if you're too macho to get beat by a woman, you better find another sport, guys, because those women are going to step in there and beat you. So I see Ron and Kelly are already here. Good morning. Let's start off with a word of prayer, and we'll get going here. Dear Heavenly Father, we just ask that you continue to teach us as we study this Alpha series, this gospel, this roadmap to the gospel. We just ask that your Spirit be our teacher, our guide, comfort us when we need it. And we ask that we can learn more about ourselves and build our relationship with others and with you. We ask in Christ's name, amen. Yeah, I don't know where that green glow came from. Let me mess with my light a little bit. No, that doesn't really help. All right. We won't worry about it. The main thing is that we study the word. Okay. So last week I gave you a homework assignment, those of you that tuned in, and that was to, whenever you encountered a feeling with respect to a perception of unmet needs in your life, whenever you felt unloved, unforgiven, unaccepted, when you felt like your life had no meaning and purpose, you didn't feel important, you didn't feel adequate, I wanted you to make note of that, whether it was a mental note or writing it down, and keep track of that, all right, because that's where trouble starts. So this particular section, the green, I still got green glow around me. I don't know. This particular section is titled "How Problems Develop," and we're going to use this flow chart, which John called the Solomon Syndrome. And we're going to study a little bit about old King Solomon perhaps next week. I don't think we're going to get to it today. But it really identifies how problems develop in our lives relating to those unmet needs, or the perception of unmet needs, because those emotions really are an indicator that we're perceiving that there's needs in our lives that are not being met. And we studied last week how important these needs really are, particularly these needs for love and acceptance, meaning and purpose. Call them the personal needs, the needs of our person, really the needs of our soul. And physical needs are certainly important too. And as I get older, and I suspect many of you, the aches and pains of life and the threats to our physical health certainly weigh us down. They certainly cause us emotions as well. And so we have to trust the Lord to meet those needs also. So let's dive in here. Now, I'm going to put this chart back up. This Solomon Syndrome chart. And I really want to focus again on the middle here. But I'm going to give you a warning here, a strong warning. This chart is only intended for you. It's not intended for you to use on other people. We have a tendency to want to try to speak into other people's lives and to try to use this chart because we found that it speaks into our lives. You can teach them about this chart, but don't use it as a weapon. Don't use it as a tool. Don't use it to manipulate or use it as a club to beat other people into submission. Okay, we've got to use it on ourselves. We use it as a mirror. Okay, you look into a mirror to see who you are. You don't look into a mirror to see someone else. The appropriate use of God's word is not a club to beat people into submission. The Bible is not a club to beat people into submission. It's a mirror. You look in the mirror to see who you are. Because this whole journey that we're taking in this Alpha series is really a self-awareness, a biblical self-awareness journey. And when we become aware of ourselves and when we develop our own healthy identity, then we can, and only then, can we relate in a healthy way to others. Because without a healthy identity, we're going to tend to manipulate others rather than love others. And you'll see at the top of this hierarchy, this ladder, this pyramid, in the very top rung of the ladder is this spiritual need to love. And we'll talk more about that, but for now, we need to talk about how our needs for worth get met. Now, every morning we wake up with a need for food and water. We wake up hungry and thirsty. And I think you'd all agree that's normal. That's normal. And assuming that we've had something to drink and something to eat, typically with me, it starts out with a cup of coffee, then usually some orange juice and a biscuit or some sort of a pastry or something like that. Once that need is taken care of, then I can start thinking about what I'm going to do today. What are we going to do today? Now, that question usually involves, what am I going to do to make myself worthy today? Okay? What am I going to do to prove my worth today? And I usually have what I call Tom's to-do list, all right? And at the end of the day, if I don't get my list accomplished, I feel worth less, all right? So every day I wake up with a motivation, and we're going to call this a deficit motivation, because if we're worth less, then we have to fill in whatever that missing piece is in our lives, whether it's love, acceptance, forgiveness, importance, adequacy. We have to fill all that in order to be worthy. Right? That's the assumption. But I'm going to tell you that that's a false assumption. According to the gospel of Jesus Christ, that's a false assumption. But let's not go there quite yet. Now, when I have a deficit motive and I seek to fill in that deficit, when I seek to meet that need, I'm going to enter into some sort of self-centered behavior. Okay? Because it's my deficit and it's up to me to either meet that need myself or manipulate you or someone else to meet that need for me. But it's my deficit. That's why it's self-centered. It's really all about me. Now, it may look on the surface to be an altruistic activity that I'm engaging in. And it may even help other people. It may look like love. It may bless other people, and God uses that very often. He uses our false motivations to bless other people. But it's still selfish on our part. So, we're going to identify a goal. So my list of things to do today those are my goals for today. I've got all these goals written out. And they may be good things. Take out the trash. That pleases my wife. Mow the grass. That pleases my neighbors. Right? Go to church. Put money in the offering. Be nice to people. All these things on my list, my goals. But with respect to having my need for worth met, they're false goals. You see in the bottom corner there, bottom left-hand corner, and your screen might be showing it to you backwards. I still haven't figured out the way this thing mirrors. So they're false goals. Now let's assume that I really apply myself to my false goals today. And I check off everything on my list. I'm successful. I've reached my goals. And I sleep well. I'm temporarily satisfied. If I'm lucky, I sleep well. Because it doesn't take too long for this temporary satisfaction to wear off. And then I have a vague sense of emptiness. And by the next morning, certainly, I wake up in a deficit mode again. Now I have to make a new list. I'm going to operate under the assumption that I will be worthy if I get this list accomplished. Maybe there's only one thing on my list, but it's a big one. I'll be worthy if I can achieve And since it's my I will be worthy if, it's selfish. It's about me. It's self-centered. But I'm going to set my goal anyways, thinking that, aha, today I have found a goal that's not a false goal. It's a true goal. And I engage in that activity. I apply myself to it. And I reach my goal. I won. I won. Maybe my goal was winning my class at the horse show at the World Championships. That certainly would be fun. That certainly would be exciting. And I've come close. I've made the finals several times. Finished as high as 6th. Not in the world's greatest horseman, but in the non-pro class. But I discovered, as much fun as that was, I'm still the same person I always was. I think that's why God's never let me win. He wanted to show me that as much fun as that is, and there's nothing wrong with it, that if I've got to have it to be worthy, it's a false goal. See my meaning here? And certainly it would be exciting and fun, but the excitement would be temporary. The new would wear off that buckle pretty quick. And it would be followed by a vague sense of emptiness. So I'm like, well, I guess what I really need to do is win a second world championship. Then I'll be worthy. The problem is going laps around this bottom part of this chart here is where most Christians live their life. I'm talking about believers here. I'm not talking about non-believers. This is where most Christians live their lives, running around in circles, always chasing their personal worth, always seeking satisfaction. That's why I think one of the greatest songs, perhaps maybe the greatest song of my generation, was the Rolling Stones' Satisfaction. I can't get no satisfaction. And I tried, and I tried, and I tried, and I tried. I can't get no. And then it had that great Keith Richards guitar riff in there. A lot of truth in that song. A lot of truth. Can't get satisfied. Can't get my need for personal worth satisfied. Now, the other things happen in this chart. Other things happen in this chart. But while we're on that, I guess we will talk about King Solomon today, because it's the right point to talk about this. But if you look in the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes, I'm going to open it up here. Chapter 1. Got to find it first. Let's see here. Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes. Okay. Now, this is written by King Solomon. And its theme is man's reasoning. Man's reasoning. The natural mind reasoning. And the natural mind says, I will be worthy if. Now, King Solomon, I would say, adjusted for inflation, maybe the richest man that ever lived. And besides amassing great wealth, they talk about King Solomon's gold. He was king. And some kings are tyrants, right? Some are tyrants. But King Solomon wasn't. He was a beloved king because under his rule, the people of Israel flourished. He built a beautiful temple for them to worship in. He built this shining city on the hill, Jerusalem. He did all kinds of public works. He built aqueducts for irrigation and for water, public water supply. He built vineyards, agricultural works, food. He planted forests for timber. He did all these things. The people loved him. He's one of these guys, he's like a rock star. Everything he did worked. I mean, he applied himself to, there's a list here. Let's see, this is just some of his accomplishments. He was highly educated and considered wise. In fact, he prayed to God for wisdom, not for himself, but so that he could be a better leader of his people. Recreation. All right. I imagine he was probably pretty good on a horse. But he liked to have fun. He liked to party. He was probably an alcoholic because he partied pretty hardy. And he was a workaholic. In this regard, he was like I used to be. He gained his worth from working harder than anybody else. Sexual pleasures. He had something like 700 wives and concubines. Certainly politically, he was astute. He made alliances with other kingdoms, the neighboring countries, alliances for peace and for trade. So he enriched not only himself, but his country through peace and trade. He was a patron of the arts, entertainment, certainly famous, rich. He had it all. And if you read the first chapter and a half of his book, Ecclesiastes, he lays all these things out for you. He describes it all. But his conclusion was vanity of vanities. Another way of saying that is emptiness of emptiness, worthless. In fact, in chapter 2, verse 17, he says, therefore, I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me. For all is vanity and vexation of spirit. All is emptiness and frustration. Couldn't get his needs met. Couldn't get no satisfaction. Now, some of us certainly can't hold a candle to King Solomon's accomplishments, but certainly I can relate to that frustration, that emptiness, striving so hard to reach a goal and then not having that sense of accomplishment or victory stick with me. It's like getting a new car, right? Or you drive that new car home and you like that car. You want to make sure you don't eat in the car. You want to keep that car clean. You wash the car. But with time, not much time, the new wears off. And you stop taking such good care of the car, spill your coffee from McDonald's in there, or don't clean the dust off it when you're, like I live on a ranch road and they get dusty, I don't wash it as much. And you get thinking, what I need a new car. I'm tired of this old car. You see someone drive around in a brand new car and you're like, wow, that's what I need. That's what'll make me happy. That's what'll make me look good. Need a new car. See, the new always wears off of everything. What we're looking for is something that sticks. Now, we're running out of time today, but next week we're going to talk about what God does to help us. We're going to talk about hitting bottom. We're going to talk about the things that God does to get our attention, to break this cycle, this endless running in circles. You see the arrows that are pointing in circles, right? It starts with our personal worth and it ends with our personal worth. We apply all this energy and it doesn't get us anywhere. So we're going to talk about that next week. Got 2 minutes left. I'm not going to try to go on to the next section for now. Return to your homework. Every time you feel unloved, every time you feel unimportant, every time you feel physical pain, I want you to keep note of that. What do you think caused you to feel that way? And you don't have to share that with anybody. Just want you to be honest with yourself. We'll circle back next week and we'll talk about it some more. Until then, God bless you. Happy trails.